Throughout the established history of the WWE, there have been a number of attempts to create new stars. Superstars such as Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock and John Cena all became insanely over during their WWE careers, and as a result, they became megastars. In comparison, there are those stars WWE attempted to push into a main event spotlight, but fans outright rejected them, resulting in them failing to get over. One superstar they tried this with was the Phenom The Undertaker, who could put many stars over due to his legendary status. But even at times, the Phenom has failed. But which superstars were they? Well, join us now as Wrestlelamia looks at 10 WWE superstars The Undertaker failed to get over. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos, and follow us on Facebook for exclusive lists.
Trying to couple! Vader bomb! Vader bomb! Yes! Yes! The Vader bomb has defeated The Undertaker!
Number 10. The Fake Undertaker. Now in 1994, WWE decided to debut an imposter version of The Undertaker. Ted DiBiase would claim he had found The Undertaker, and this came after he had disappeared after imploding in a casket match at the Royal Rumble following a loss to Yokozuna. And shortly after DiBiase made these claims, an imposter version of The Undertaker began to appear on television, and DiBiase claimed that The Undertaker now obtained his powers through DiBiase's money rather than Paul Bearer's urn. Leading up to SummerSlam, Bearer would reveal that he'd been in contact with the real Undertaker and that he would be at the pay-per-view to face the imposter. The real Undertaker would end up defeating him at SummerSlam in a rather underwhelming main event, and one that many fans cite as being the worst main event in SummerSlam history. It was so bad that they never used the imposter Undertaker ever again. Now the issue was that fans simply didn't care about the imposter Undertaker, they just wanted to see the real one return on television. Now according to Taker himself, he believed that the idea itself was really intriguing, but the payoff was ultimately disappointing. Number 9. Nathan Jones. Nathan Jones had an incredibly promising start to his WWE career. He would be presented as The Undertaker's protege, and he'd be initially booked to team up with Taker to take on the duo of A-Train and The Big Show at WrestleMania 19. However, this was changed at the last minute as they realized that Jones simply wasn't ready to wrestle.
Tried, it was an experiment, failed miserably. Nathan just didn't have the aptitude for the wrestling business.
According to Bruce Pritchard, one of the plans discussed for Jones at WrestleMania 19 was to have Jones face off against The Undertaker 1v1, but this was scrapped. Following WrestleMania 19, Jones was sent to OVW for more training and would make his return to television in the fall of 2003. This time, Jones would be portraying a heel and he would be given the name The Colossus of Bogo Road to reflect his time spent in a maximum security prison. He would once again receive a huge push and would be featuring Brock Lesnar's team at Survivor Series, but he would ultimately fail to make a connection with the crowd. Jones decided to leave the WWE in late 2003, citing that he didn't like the difficult travel schedule. Number 8. Maven. Maven had a number of substantial pushes throughout his time in WWE. His first push came following his co-win of the first season of Tough Enough, and following his win, one of the first on-screen feuds was with the Legendary Undertaker. The two would create one of the most iconic Rumble moments in history, as Maven would eliminate the Dead Man from the 2002 Rumble match.
No way! Hardcore title on the line! Here's the cover! Here we go! He's got it! What the hell?
Maven would then defeat The Undertaker shortly after to win the Hardcore title. Although he had an assist from The Rock, this was still the highest achievement of his career. And obviously, to defeat The Undertaker was a huge deal. Over the next 2 years, Maven would have runs in the Hardcore division as well as a feud with Evolution. But sadly, even though he had a lot of talent, he failed to find a character that truly suited him, and as a result struggled to get over with the crowd, even with a win over The Undertaker under his belt. Number 7. Vladimir Kozlov. Vladimir Kozlov would make his main roster debut in 2008, and from the very beginning he was given an instant push. Kozlov would begin an unbeaten streak, defeating jobbers up until he demanded better competition.
I am undefeated. I demand better competition.
This better competition came in the form of a WWE title feud with Triple H and Jeff Hardy, and this was a role that Kozlov clearly wasn't ready for. Also one the crowd didn't really want to see him in. Kozlov's brief run in the main event fell completely flat. He would have a 1v1 title match with Triple H at 2008 Survivor Series pay-per-view, which would be set with utter silence from the live crowd, but this was until Edge was added in the last minute. Following his time in the main event scene, his push didn't stop there.
Might be going to school right about now. Wait a minute! Kozlov! Power slam! My God! I can't believe it! Shocking!
He would defeat The Undertaker clean on SmackDown in early 2009 and actually looked as if they were going to book the two for WrestleMania 25. However, a short few weeks later, Shawn Michaels would defeat Kozlov to determine who would face The Undertaker at WrestleMania. This ended Kozlov's unbeaten streak, and in the process, he would gradually fall down the card. Now, his current character of a Russian badass would be hard to get over with the WWE audience. It would only be until he transitioned into a comedy character that people actually cared.
A Kozlov chant! Oh my!
Number 6. King Mabel. The WWE shocked the world in 1995 when they decided that Mabel should win the King of the Ring and thus be given the moniker of King Mabel. This was an interesting decision from the part of WWE as Mabel wasn't even popular with fans and there was no demand to see him in the main event scene. During the tournament, WWE even had Mabel defeat The Undertaker.
Mabel drops the leg! Oh man! 1, 2, and you got it! You got it! I can't believe this!
But unfortunately, it did nothing for his credibility at the top. Mabel would face Diesel in the main event for the WWE title at 1995 SummerSlam pay-per-view, but Mabel was incredibly reckless in the match, and Vince McMahon was so angry with him that he wanted to fire him on the spot. Diesel would eventually talk Vince out of it, but this goes to show just how much faith Vince had in Mabel at the time. Mabel would return, but in other runs as Viscera and Big Daddy V, but unfortunately none of these managed to get over to the degree WWE would have liked. Number 5. Mr. Kennedy. Mr. Kennedy had every single tool it took to be a top star in WWE. He could talk and he could have decent enough matches. However, throughout his WWE career, there were a number of setbacks for the former US champion. When he debuted in the summer of 2005, it was clear that they had big plans for him. He was regularly featured and WWE were adamant that he needed to get over, so the following year he would enter into a feud with The Undertaker.
He didn't do anything! Kennedy has defeated The Undertaker in a first blood match! Yeah, thanks to the...
This feud was supposed to act as a launching pad for him into the main event scene, but unfortunately, this never occurred. When Kennedy won the Money in the Bank at WrestleMania 23, fans assumed that Kennedy was going to win the WWE or World title like Edge and RVD had before him. However, an injury resulted in WWE making Kennedy drop the Money in the Bank briefcase to Edge and then hitting the reset button on his character. WWE would try a number of things over the next few years to take Kennedy to the next level. It was going to be Vince McMahon's illegitimate son, but this was later changed and WWE would try to present Kennedy as a babyface, a move which the crowd didn't know what to make of. Kennedy would be eventually released from his WWE contract in 2009, and this was apparently due to backstage politics. Number 4. Giant Gonzalez. Debuting at the 1993 Rumble, the idea for the infamous character of Giant Gonzalez was for him to be a new menacing rival for The Undertaker. However, Gonzalez was simply awful in the ring, and the fans couldn't take him seriously. Gonzalez would wear a truly bizarre bodysuit with fake airbrushed muscles on it, as well as artificial hair placed in random parts. Gonzalez would have a number of matches with The Undertaker and they all failed to connect with the crowd. The match at WrestleMania 9 is often considered to be The Undertaker's worst WrestleMania match of all time.
The Giant Gonzalez has some sort of claw, and referee's calling for a foul here.
Everybody can smell it.
And their rematch at SummerSlam in 1993 was so bad, you would see Gonzalez being left off television after it took place. WWE would eventually release Gonzalez in October 1993, and he would never return to the company in any capacity. Number 3. Hayden Wright. Most WWE fans know Hayden Wright for his feud with The Undertaker during the Ruthless Aggression era. Hayden Wright was yet another superstar that WWE paired with The Undertaker in the hopes to get him over.
Another one, trying to force the man into the casket. The Undertaker wins the casket match.
During this time though, Hayden Wright was involved in some incredibly bizarre segments, one including Michael Cole. We still don't know what that promo was about. Following the feud with The Undertaker, WWE would try a number of things to get him over. They would try turning him babyface and aligning him with Road Warrior Animal, but this did little to warrant any interest from fans. JR would sum up the problems with Hayden Wright by saying, "We thought, well, this guy is big and impressive and has a distinctive look. We can get him fundamentally sound and teach him how to do the basic rudimentary things in the ring that a big man would do, and we would be ahead of the curve. It's just some guys have the aptitude for the business and some guys just don't. I thought John had a problem assimilating the nuances of being a pro wrestling performer. As far as a bad guy or anything, no, some guys just don't have, he didn't grow up a fan, he didn't know the product as much, or you could disconnect with her at some point in your formative years. Sometimes it's hard to regain that, and I think that's just the case with John." Number 2, Mordecai. When Mordecai debuted in 2004, the idea was for him to be an anti-Undertaker. He would dress in all white and preach to the audience about sin and inform them that they were all heading to hell.
I will punish each and every one of them, and they will hear me and fear me.
Sadly, the crowd never connected to the character and Mordecai's matches fell completely flat. Now, it was rumored that Mordecai was supposed to face off against The Undertaker at WrestleMania 21, but this never happened. A Mordecai vs Undertaker feud would have been really interesting from a storyline point of view. However, one of the key issues was Mordecai's in-ring work. Now, he would be eventually repackaged as the living vampire Kevin Thorne during the relaunch of ECW in 2006, a gimmick he attained little success with. And number 1, Roman Reigns. It's been well documented that over the past few years, WWE had a continuous issue with getting Roman Reigns over with the crowd. As following the Shield splitting in 2014, it was clear that WWE wanted Reigns to be the next top superstar in the company. However, the way they approached this was completely wrong. Reigns was given horrendous promo material to work with.
"You are a sniveling little suck-up sellout full of suffering succotash, son!"
And his booking wasn't much better. For instance, the 2015 Royal Rumble made Reigns look so bad as a babyface, the crowd completely turned on him. Even an appearance of The Rock couldn't transform those boos. In the years that followed, Reigns would be heavily booed every time he wrestled or cut a promo. WrestleMania main events at WrestleMania 32, 33 and 34 were all met with the crowd actively booing Reigns, so much so that it seriously damaged the quality of the main event. Not even a big feud with The Undertaker could turn those boos into cheers. In fact, things got even worse for Reigns when he was meant to retire The Undertaker at WrestleMania 33.
This is my yard now.
Now, it wasn't until WWE allowed Reigns to be more open with the crowd in 2019 where a connection finally began to form and the reception became a lot more positive. In the summer of 2020, they finally turned him heel, and this was a move that fans wanted for a long time. It's been a move that has received a lot of positive feedback from the majority of the WWE audience. But there you have it, folks, 10 superstars who The Undertaker failed to get over in WWE. Were there any more victims to this list? Let us know in the comments down below, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.